Hello, everyone. Today we are having Phil Harvey with us, who is applied AI architect, and he's gonna tell us about himself. Phil, please tell our audience who is Phil Harvey and what are his key expertise in the technology sector.
Who is Phil Harvey? I've had a very windy road of a career. So I started off at the turn of the millennium, around 2000, doing a Bachelor of Arts in Artificial Intelligence. Since then, I've lost count of how many actual jobs. I was unemployed after my degree for about 8 months, and then I did something called Rights for Light CAD, which is building 3D models of businesses and buildings for analysis against legal requirements. Worked in architectural visualization and render farm managing. I've worked in media and advertising. I've been the founder of a startup, worked at Microsoft for 6 years, and in a different role now that I can't really talk about. So that's kind of me as a career. I've also written a book about technical empathy and cognitive empathy and data work. I produce music. You can find me on SoundCloud under Code Beard, which may not be too much of a surprise. And yeah, generally try and live my life and learn as much as I can along the way.
That's great. I see you have massive profile and you have, I think, a lot of experience. So you have worked in various top level roles in these 24 years. I'm curious what drives you around data and AI. And as you said, you started as a CAD engineer and then you shifted your role towards data, AI, and you worked at Microsoft. You were a CTO of a startup. So what advice would you give to aspiring students who are just starting their journey in data science?
So it's quite a large question there, but I think if we start off with the degree choice that I did. So I do have a Bachelor of Arts in Artificial Intelligence. This was considered to be a really bad idea when I chose to do it. It was during a winter of AI and those kind of turn of the millennium time where everybody's worried about the millennium bug that I'm sure your listeners have never heard about. It's a bit of computing history, so they should go and check it out. Yeah, old news. But then I thought I wanted to do something else. I wanted to do 3D graphics. And that's where the CAD thing came from. It was the job that I could get rather than the job that I wanted. So I kind of went and did that and learned my way through. And then, if I, with a sort of smile on my face, I could say the industry caught up with the kind of AI techniques and data and these things. And I found out the things I'd learned in my degree became relevant just about 10 years later than when I was learning about them. And yes, techniques had updated and those things, but I think the real truth of it is that the algorithms being used within AI, the fundamentals of it, neural networks, genetic algorithms, all these kind of things, even back to the statistics and regression and all that kind of stuff, they were kind of waiting for the data and the compute to arrive. So the fact that neural networks work as they do now is more of a function of data and compute than it is the fundamentals of the algorithm. Yes, smart people doing smart things. So the simple answer is the world kind of caught up with what I've been learning about in an unexpected way. Then I found I could do things with data. I could kind of think about data. I could work out how to do things that other people didn't do. So in terms of, you asked me about skills, I kind of apply what I've got and try and learn something new.
So I see that AI have been in existence, I think since 1970s maybe. It's old. So why now? In this after 2000. So it's been people are coming to know about AI, but it has been existed before as well.
So there's I think it's you kind of trigger me on that point because AI was invented before computer science. Alan Turing is often quoted as the father of AI, and during the Second World War and his work on cracking codes and things, the fundamental mathematics and the idea of the universal Turing machine and these things that he was coming up with were around machine intelligence. that was later called artificial intelligence in the 70s and things like that by other people. But the field of computer science fell out of the useful pieces of AI. And that's kind of the answer to the second part of your question as well. AI has always thought about a wide range of things as a field. The useful bits fall out as computer science. When I was learning AI search, everything from A-star search to binary tree search and all that kind of stuff, that was part of AI.
Yeah.
Search is now part of computer science because it fell out of AI as a useful thing that became computer science. Facial recognition is another one.
Yeah. Like, I just want to ask, like, who is like regulating these things? Like, okay, previously A-star, as you are telling, A-star is AI actually. It's the basis. So, like, who is the person or who is the organization which is telling people, okay, about AI?
So there's a group of people, they're sort of certain leaders of the world. They all have their tech stuff. They wear hooded cowls and they sit around a big round table that has a star in the middle and they decide. No, I'm joking, of course.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I'm joking, of course. But I would have said, this is why I describe myself as being an applied AI architect. It's not a person or a set of people who decide. It's what's useful. The system as a whole, the system of business, the system of the world decides which bit works, and those bits kind of get carried forward. So I know there's a big interest in games and games programming.
Yeah.
A-star is super useful in pathfinding in games. There's a fundamental part of that. So people like games, A-star becomes useful within pathfinding within games. People learn how to use it. It becomes common. It becomes computer science. People get taught it. That kind of thing happens.
Yeah. So let's get to our next question. So let's talk about your work at Microsoft as an applied AI architect. What it's like working in the research and development in a large tech company.
I had a very strange part of working in research. The incubation business in Microsoft takes acquired businesses through incubation within research. And part of that incubation is working out how to apply it and sell it in the real world. So I was part of a very small team who were working out how to apply and sell simulation-based deep reinforcement learning to industrial customers.
All right. That's great. What do you think about the big developments in data science that can happen in the future?
So I like that question very much because one of my favorite technologies, something I want to see as it develops, is simulation. So there was, just before the ChatGPT thing, a boom in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Right. A discussion of different metaverses in different ways. You can talk about the industrial metaverse and these things. Fundamentally comes down to creating the data you don't have that you wish you did have. So data being collected and all from sensors or machines or people or any of these things, it has gaps. It doesn't have gaps because of poor data quality. Data quality isn't a problem that really exists. It's kind of made up by data scientists. But data has gaps and it doesn't fit what you want. If you build a good simulation, it generates samples of data based on how the system works to fill in those gaps and enable new learning opportunities. So data scientists learning to work with simulations to create synthetic data, I think is very exciting.
That seems exciting. Yeah. So yeah, my next question. Everyone knows that what AI is capable of. Like, it has a lot of applications. And it is having a huge impact in our daily lives. It is changing our lives. What do you think about future of AI in general?
Again, really interesting phrasing on the question. I don't think anybody knows what AI is capable of. So that premise, I think, is one that I'd challenge. Because lots of people see the potential and lots of companies would like you to buy into the potential. There is much less actual application in the real world. I'm going to go back to an example of facial recognition, actually, which hopefully sounds like a boring and ordinary example to people. I was I'm old enough and grey enough to have seen facial recognition come up as a massive, amazing thing. It raised ethical concerns. There were questions about the police. It was, is it invading our privacy? Is it biased in some way? Is it exclusionary in some way? It's a huge conversation, very much like some of the conversations about generative AI and these kind of things. But now, your computer and your phone and everything else you can think of opens with your face. It's become normal and ubiquitous as a form of multi-factor authentication. So I think the future of AI will continue in the waves of hype and utility. Mm-hmm. The peripheral tech will start to be useful, will be in things that we have around us and use. But I think nobody really knows what the big shiny thing will be. As soon as it becomes useful, it becomes productized, used in your everyday life, and it stops being interesting. And so it's the surprises that I look out for.
So we are going to get surprises in the future.
We're going to get, change is the only constant or some other cute expression.
About AI, I think most of the people think that AI is going to take over their jobs, for example. Do you think this is a paradox in the future?
I kind of want to be cute with my answer to this one. If people think AI is going to come over and take over jobs, come at me. Go on. Have a go. Show me. Because nobody has proved that yet. It's like the mythical productivity gain. Mm-hmm. I've seen really bad equations as people try to calculate that. Yes, new tools speed people up in their work. AI is promised to replace workers. The steam engine promised and did replace workers. The printing press replaced workers. Yeah. That's not a new conversation. I think the idea of the problems technological change creates are only problems if we think they're new. If we focus on education, we focus on through-life education, we focus on how we train people to solve problems, how we train people to adopt and adapt to new tools, there will always be work for people because people create work for themselves. Yeah. If you imagine the future where all jobs are done by AI, you end up as, was it H.G. Wells's Time Machine, where you have the two classes, the above ground people who sit around and eat fruit in the sun all day, and the below ground people who make sure everything works for them. And then the below ground people eat the above ground people, and that's a bit weird. But those kind of far future things, sure. I prefer Ian M. Banks's culture where meaty type people and AI type people all interact together because we all just exist as intelligences anyway. And, I'm more Star Trek than I am Star Wars. I'm more optimist than I am Terminatorist or whatever you want to say. But that's the fun of the fair, right? Who knew that I'd unlock my phone with my face that I carry in my pocket. If you told me that before I went to university, I'd think you were crazy. But it happens.
Yeah, that's right. So, again, another question. So, some people I have seen, they think of AI as in taking a shortcut to achieve greater benefits. So, I think this is against the ethics. Personally, I think that. What do you think about this?
Oh, really interesting point, actually, because so I've got a boy, he's 11, and he doesn't like using AI to do his homework. He doesn't think about it. He thinks of it as cheating and those things. I may have had a hand in that because I agree. It's like it's a problem in universities, right? That the students use AI to write the essay, and then the professor needs to use AI to mark the essay and all that kind of stuff. And you've got AI marking AI and who's learning what. And that's kind of pointless. And this is what I mean about the through-life education. I sometimes dream of going back to university. Sometimes, I think, would it be great to get a PhD or this kind of stuff. I don't think, and I'll use AI to trick my way through and get the qualification without learning anything. What would be the point, right? Learn for learning's sake. It's very unusual for you to get a degree and get a job and that's you set for life, well done. That doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
Used to happen. Some people have that ideal, and some people with a lot of money want the worker bees to just lock into the system, keep quiet and do their job. That also doesn't happen.
Is this linked with the generation gap? So if I see like previous generation like yours, people would like to like read books.
I like reading books, yes.
Yeah, they won't take shortcuts like this. Like in today's era, students, as you are talking about, students are trying to write their assignments with AI, like to save time maybe.
So I've never been described as the previous generation, but I suppose I am, and thank you. You have to hear that for the first time, and now I'm on camera hearing that for the first time.
We can cut it off.
No, we'll keep that in, I think. People read books if books are good. It's not a question of utility and speed. You don't read a great story. You don't listen to a story. You don't wish the film was like half as long and they just got it over with quickly. Great 3-hour film is a great experience. A great 300-page book is a great experience. Yeah. And, I don't listen to audiobooks, for example. I prefer to read. There's something about that process I enjoy. So on the one hand, yes, those of us who grew up when, I went to play in the woods when I was young and I didn't have a phone with me, I'd be back by dinner, that kind of thing. And I read books and comics and those kind of things, hooray, because they were there. And now there are so many options for things people can do, play games and all that kind of stuff. But they're just options. They're not requirements, right? You can read a book if you want to. You're writing notes with a pen on a pad right now. You're not using a tablet and tappity-tap.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's talk about your book. Can you explain your book to the audience and what amazing thoughts it has?
Well, I can explain the book. Amazing thoughts are up to the audience's decision, right? So when I was a programmer, like fully hardcore, 15 years experience, that kind of thing, one of the main criticisms that was thrown at me is I should have more empathy.
Yeah.
I should talk to people better, gooder, more, something. And I realized that the word had no meaning for me. So because I'm a good nerd, I went and found out what it meant. And I discovered that there's a big split between biological empathy, which is a real thing. You have mirror neurons in your brain. If some people, and not all people, and there's a spectrum here as well, if somebody else is sad, they're sad. And it's kind of this automatic thing. They cry at films and whatever. They don't laugh at disaster. But then there's something called cognitive empathy on the other side. That is a learnable, practicable skill where you, through listening, and I mean listening with all of your senses, so it's not exclusionary in that way. Like, you can see things, you can hear things, you can smell the air, if you will. You can take a full experience and listen from that. You can pick things up from other people, and you can use that to do better in the things you do. And quite often, problems of data systems, data science, AI, technology, these things, they can be solved with practicing empathy more than they can be solved with more programming. And so I did a whole bunch of research on that, and I got a whole bunch of examples, and I wrote them all down. Interestingly, it was first a lecture series that I did for about 5 years, and then it just so happened the publisher was in the auditorium at one point and said, "Do you want to write that as a book?" And I went, "Yeah."
So just like that, you wrote a whole book.
I did kind of sit down and went, what did I say in the lectures, and just started typing, and then editors appeared, thankfully.
So you talked about empathy. Mm-hmm. So I see like not everyone has it, and the people who doesn't have it, and they want to learn it, and maybe incorporate it into themselves. How would they do that?
Great question. And this is, I get challenged a lot by people. There is a group of people in the world who don't believe that empathy is a learnable skill. They think it's you have it or you don't. Yeah. That is fundamentally not true. Those people are wrong. I can say that equivocally. A really good example of learning empathy, and this is going to be a very specific thing, and because we're at Goldsmiths, right, it's a really good example. Go and look at some art. In the UK, you can go and look at art for free. It just takes your time.
Yeah, obviously.
In other countries, that's not always possible. Go and look at art and ask yourself, how does that art relate to something in my life? If you're working, how does it relate to my job? If you're studying, how does it relate to my study? And force yourself to do the mental work of taking the picture you're in front of and applying it to your own situation. That's really good empathy practice. Then, in another situation, when you're watching TV, linear or streamed, or you're reading a book, or you're out in the street, you can try and spot things and say, what's another way of looking at what's happening here? What would that character think? What would that person on the street think? Why did that person over there stop? You can do it when you're on a train and these things. Try and get into their head, not emotionally, but just try and pick up from their behavior what you can learn from them. That's what you're practicing. Might feel kind of random at first, but those two things you can definitely practice. Then when you get into a work situation, a technology situation, a learning situation, or some interaction, you'll find that there's the thing in your mind that goes, I kind of know what they're talking about now. And I can use that. Yeah, and then things will get better. And that's the kind of practice that you can definitely do. Art and media is a great place to start because you can do it without needing difficult, squishy other people to help.
It's like enhancing your feelings.
Yes, I'd also say that if feelings are difficult for you, you don't have to think about feelings. Think of it as a purely rational act. Feelings are your thing, great, go for it. You can also use it rationally to say, I'm looking at you, you're wearing a hat inside. Maybe you're cold, maybe you're not. Why would you be cold when I'm not? Is it because of my beard? Is it because of these things? And you can start just going through that process.
Yeah. It's
rational, it's not emotional. And then I might see you put on your coat because you're cold and I go, okay, coldness is a thing. Later on, we go to a place and we're going to sit down and have a coffee. There's a choice between a door seat and a not door seat. Because I'm not a cold person and you may be, I may choose the door seat, not. Suddenly, you will feel different.
Yeah.
Purely rationally. It's nothing emotional there, but now I've changed something in our relationship. This may sound highly manipulative, and it is very similar to psychopaths that learn to operate in society in that kind of way, but we can all learn those skills. You don't have to be an emotional person to deal with that. You can use the signals you're getting from the world to change it to your or other people's benefit.
So somehow it's also linked with psychology.
It is, but in a kind of practicable way. What I'm really trying to do, and it's in the book, I hope, I'm trying to say it's not big and grand. There are lots of things you can think about, but it's not, don't do a psychology degree to gain empathy.
Obviously.
But there is psychology in it. There is some practice and things you can do.
Yeah, that's great explanation. Okay. You have talked about data being useless without empathy.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you shed some light on how big organizations are using our data?
So, I think I'm going to focus in on my pet hate at the moment, which is data quality being a problem. I saw a study a couple of years ago which said data quality is now a board level problem. I'm like, no, it's not. Because data doesn't have quality, data just is. It's a reading. The fact that you recorded the wrong stuff, maybe a process failure, the fact that it doesn't fit what you want to do next is a problem of collection and these things. Saying, oh, data quality is a problem, I can't do my work, never helped anybody.
Yeah.
What helped is to go, the only fundamental question we need to ask ourselves is, from the data we've got, what can we know? And who can know it, right? Because you want to know new things and know things differently. And data can tell you that. And it's an amazing resource for doing that. But working out who could know what takes empathy. Because if you sit there and go, I'm trying to run my favorite clustering algorithm and it just doesn't work. Sorry, that's my petulant data scientist voice. Doesn't help. Whinging about it doesn't help. Going, we could do this instead and it would tell them this thing. Or we could look at a different set of data and that would be better for this. Much more productive and useful.
All right. So my next question is, about data being most valuable commodity. What do you think about that?
It's the thing that other things are built on. So, yes, it definitely is one of our most valuable commodities. So, some people say there is no AI without data. Even synthetic data is
Yeah.
data. It's this kind of, there are some horrible expressions like data is the new oil. Hooray, we're going to kill seabirds with data now. Actually, I think of it as soil, right? It's the juicy stuff of the earth that we grow things in, right? If you want nice fruit, you want nice soil. If you think AI is the fruit, then data is the soil in that way. And yes, it's a cute, I added S to the word and somebody else probably said it first. But if you don't cultivate the quality of your soil, the quality of your produce will suffer. It's that kind of resource.
Yeah.
So any company's got their own garden that they're tending to. And if you don't invest in, if you try and strip mine your garden and you get right down to the clay and nothing grows, you got no fruit no more.
So I feel like, or maybe most people feel like big organizations, they are maybe selling over data and they are growing themselves. And in terms of ethics, how would you relate it?
Oh, so that is a big and chewy topic because I have my opinion, and other people have a different opinion.
Yeah.
And there've been at least 2 waves of startups who have tried to allow people to have an app on their phone where they monetize the data. So if a big company wants to use it, they have to say yes. And we've got GDPR where we know every website on your phone is annoying now because it's like, I didn't want the cookies in the first place. Now I have to tell them every time. And now I don't want to subscribe to the newsletter. And oh no, I can't read the article because I don't want to sign up for their thing. And it feels like the battle lines are drawn and something's going to have to break. Right. And even through to streaming services that go, hey, it's this price and you get no ads and it's fine. And now they're going, here's some ads. Do you want to pay a bit more?
Yeah.
Because essentially they're saying, and that's what they're doing to play on that balance. They're going, you don't like it if we sell your data, pay us not to sell your data. And I think that's morally abhorrent. Right. But where's the money come from? I pay my subscription, I watch my TV, I listen to my music and all that kind of stuff. I'm of the generation, I used to go to a music shop and buy tapes or CDs or that kind of stuff.
DVDs, yeah.
The amount of music I had was very small. Now it's very large. And so I'm kind of conflicted there. But this whole, hey, you've watched it for free for 3 years, here's some ads for you, which mean we're selling your data. And you kind of opted in at that point because you kind of had to. And you didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, people who don't know that, they just click the consent button and that, here you go.
Yeah,
and
the this box goes away button. That's what that's called.
Yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, like in terms of like legal terms, is it okay? Is it all right? What do you think about that?
Not a lawyer, also not a doctor. So no medical advice and no legal advice.
Just
from
your
me.
opinion.
And I'm also not a financial advisor, so not financial advice either. I think legality is a running battle, especially at the moment. So there's European regulation for AI coming in, there's GDPR, there's all these kind of things. It's a silly analogy, but you think about, when you watch films about the Wild West in America and there are 2 people on horses shooting at each other on either side of a train, it feels a bit like that. There's a train going down the tracks and they're trying to take pot shots at each other, or probably a better analogy. But that's what it feels like. And so definitely not a lawyer, doctor or financial advisor.
So we have to go with it. Yeah.
Well, we have to watch it and see what happens.
So yeah, my next question is it's for the students who just started their journey in computer science.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, where were you when you started studying? What were your mindset back then?
Oh, that's lovely question. So I'm from a place in the UK known as the West Country. I went to the only school possible. I went to that school. And when I got to my A-levels, they stopped doing computer science at that point. It was not possible in school. So I I travelled about an hour each morning to get to the college that did do computer science because I wanted to, because computers were kind of my thing at that point.
That's a long way.
It was a long way for them. It was had to get to the local town, then get on a bus and go, all that kind of stuff, get up early in the morning and do these things. And I just did that because that meant I could do what I wanted to do. And I think that kind of set the bar for me. I was told at that college not to do artificial intelligence because nobody hired for it at that time. I should do computer science because everybody's hiring for that. But I did it anyway. These kind of things. And I think that's kind of the core of the advice. You won't always know what you want to do, but do something. And it's okay to do the thing you want to do, especially if it teaches you stuff. Maybe not bad things, but especially educationally, just go towards what you want to do because it gives you such great stories.
Yeah, personally, when I started, it was really hard to choose the field because people tell you to do something else. That's a hard thing to do. Like take your own decision and just go with it. Like just go with the flow.
So I'm going to say mark the time. We're at 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So we'll cut this section.
It's fine. Just last one.
If you want to wrap up, could you repeat the question and then we'll go from there?
I think we can change the question maybe.
Okay. But let's do 2 seconds of silence.
All right. What are your thoughts on having today's resources back in your time? You had these resources when you were studying. What would you do differently?
Yeah, I didn't feel when I was studying that I didn't have the resources because you never know what you don't have in that way. I think if we'd had the availability of data and compute and all that kind of stuff, I would have learned what I learned at that point. I am a great believer that it has never been better to do stuff with technology than right now. That if you have access to a computer that you're allowed to use, you can get documentation, you can get software, you can get data, you can do all these things legally and well, and you can learn and you can build and you can do whatever you want. You can create so many different futures for yourself. You can just get on and do it. When I was learning, I had to get the book. I had to get the binaries. I had to get, you had to buy your coding environment. You couldn't just download one, all that kind of stuff. So it was different, and I'm old, but I'm still here, and I can see how great it is now. And it's this point which is, if you want to be a programmer, write code. If you want to make games, make games. There's nothing to really stop you. I mean, a Raspberry Pi Zero is 20 quid?
Yeah.
Do a couple of hours work, and pay your rent, and then buy a Raspberry Pi Zero and build on that. If that's all you've got, that's all you've got, right?
It's just like going step by step.
Step by step. Start with what you have, build something, because that's what people will see. Saying you've read 14 books doesn't help if you didn't build something, right? Well, who is it? I think it's in Buddhism, wisdom is action. You don't become wise for no reason. You become wise so you choose the right action.
Yeah. Like just to wrap up, I told you I had a surprise question for you. I want to ask, have you given a thought about starting a Beardy Geeks group, like tech group? I think that would be really great.
100% definitely not starting a Beardy Geek group because we'd only get half the population for a start. But think
that would be like...
I think everybody appreciates a beard, so starting a geeky beard appreciation society would be fine because we can all get together and enjoy other people's beards then.
Yeah, anything that works.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, thank you for coming today at Goldsmiths. And that's it.
That was fun. I enjoyed it.